next member who has questions, and that's Senator Michael McDowell. And Senator, you have 7 minutes as well, including for the answers. Thanks,
Cahill. First of all, I want to welcome the contributors here today and thank them for their contributions and their submissions. The second thing I want to do is to ask, in relation to the dangers of gambling and gambling addiction and the damage that it does anybody here have a problem with the general thrust of this bill, which seems to regard gambling as something which can be controlled, but in general should not be discouraged? And I just want to raise a few points in that context. Firstly, in relation to amusement arcades, or as they're colloquially known, casinos, under the present law, you can't operate a casino legally, and it's a crime to do so in any area where the local authority hasn't adopted a resolution under Part 3 of the 1956 Act. That's been flagrantly breached day in, day out in Dublin. The Revenue Commissioners seem to be complicit in this criminal activity, in that they are issuing licences to people to operate in places for which there is no local authority resolution. Now, I don't know what is happening with the Revenue Commissioners that they consider themselves to be entitled to license individual machines for operation in a manner which is criminal. But that's what's happening. So I'd ask for feedback on that in a second. The other thing is that, I mean, I'm conscious of things such as fixed odds betting terminals, FOBTs. This bill seems to envisage that they will be licensable right across the country. And I don't see any planning control over where they're going to be made available, or by whom they will be operated. And I don't see any policy in this legislation to stop this, because I believe that they are a form of taxation on the gullible, to put it at the most benign. That's there. The third thing is, in relation to gambling generally, I note an article in today's Currency, the online business magazine, by Fintan Drury, who was formerly in Paddy Power. And he's calling on Irish legislators to actually look at the problem of gambling, not simply to facilitate it with this legislation. And I know that Mr. Grant, I can see him nodding there, but I mean, calling for this legislation to be enacted is calling for the widespread diversification of gambling, unless we have countermeasures to keep gambling under control. There's nothing in this Act about the amount of licences that can be granted. There's nothing in this bill which doesn't discourage, online arcade, or sorry, gambling arcades or whatever, anywhere in the country. And I'm just wondering, you've come here today, and I fully support your general drift, all of you, to say there are problems with gambling and there must be controls. But this legislation does nothing to do any of that. It is absolutely, it's silent on that. It seems to be enabling, and the very phrase, the gambling industry. Is this an industry we actually want to encourage? I'm against it. I am a liberal, but I'm against it because I see the damage it's doing to a lot of people, and good friends of mine who've been destroyed by gambling addiction. And I'm not a gambler myself, just in case anybody thinks I'm a zealot. But I just feel that this bill, whereas it does bring in possibilities of control, the general scheme of the bill seems to be that gambling's fine. And just one final thing, I notice in Head 69, it's now proposed that anybody providing any goods or any services can operate a kind of a lottery to encourage its purchase with a limit of £5,000 on the prizes. So in other words, if you're selling widgets, or if you're selling biscuits, or you're selling anything like that, you can with no license, as long as you stay under 5,000, offer lottery type inducements to purchase your goods. I mean, is anybody, to your knowledge, queried whether this is a good or a bad idea? I don't see anybody doing this. And I have to say that Fintan Drury's article today really caught my attention, in that he's saying that Irish legislators are sleepwalking effectively into a disaster which has already happened in England. So it'd be interesting to hear any of your views on that.
Okay, thank you, Senator. Over to the floor. I don't know if anyone in particular wants to respond to that. You're all welcome. Mr. Grant, you're up first. Yeah, do you want to respond?
Yeah, there was a lot in there, Senator, and thank you for for your thoughts and questions on that. Okay, I mean, should gambling be discouraged? While people may perceive that myself and the project that I work at are anti-gambling, that is not the case. We've never called for a prohibition of gambling, and we understand that many people enjoy it as a pastime with low to moderate levels of harm, or in some cases no harm at all. So we're not trying to stop gambling, and we're not trying to prohibit gambling. Harmful gambling should definitely be identified so that people know what harmful gambling is. That has not happened yet in the history of the state, not at a statutory level. And harmful gambling, to my mind, as a addiction counsellor, should be discouraged by the state and by the providers of gambling products. Right? In answer to that question, the machines situation in Dublin, I'm not going to have a pop off the revenue commissioners, so I don't know how to answer that one.
Well, but I'm not afraid to do so, and I've got privilege, and maybe that's the situation. But I mean, they are collaborating in a criminal activity by providing the licenses for these machines.
Well, I'll take the read of a former Minister for Justice on that one, Senator, and I'll move on to the next one, maybe. The fob teas, yeah, I would have grave concerns about that. I mean, there are bars in Ireland, we hear from our clients, bars that have fob teas in them. So there are no bookie shops because there's an unwritten gentleman's agreement there, but there are pubs in Ireland which are doubly breaking the law because, first of all, they're not supposed to have any gambling in them at all. So it would concern me, and the fact that at least in our submission, we proposed that there would be no casino products in betting shops, that sports betting licenses would be kept completely separate from casino gaming licenses, that you could not have the two products in the same premises. That's what we would propose. Also, I mean, if there are no limits on the number of licenses or the number of potential machines, let's say in regard to fob teas, that could potentially create a situation that is worse than the situation that occurred in the UK, where they had massive issues with fob teas because they at least had a rule limiting it to 4 fob tea machines per betting shop. But then, of course, many of the gambling operators had multiple shops on the same high streets to put more machines into the high street. So we would want to see, as per submission, a complete ban on fob teas and a clampdown of illegal gambling in public houses. The diversification, again, I'm not 100% sure what specifically you were going for there, but I think, to not have any limits on, say, the potential number of licenses in the jurisdiction could be a problem, especially when we have a history of ignoring illegal gambling in places like Dublin City on a grand scale. And I actually had missed the €5,000 lottery when we were going through the legislation. So that would concern me, because certainly some of our clients have come across these, I suppose, technically illicit lotteries on social media platforms where you pay €20 and maybe you win a car or something like that. So I think it would expand that and maybe legitimise that even further. Yes, I would share your concerns on that.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I know there's a couple of other witnesses indicating, but I'm actually, time is up, so I'm going to move on to the next speaker, and the other witnesses can respond, in the wider discussion. You might want to make points that are pertinent to